And Stephen, I'm gonna go on mute and it's all you now.
Good evening, my relatives. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is Stephen Cheney with the Seventh Generation Fund in a special event where we're bringing together a few of the relatives that have been impacted by the fires out in the West, or working with our communities out in the West to provide support to our families and communities that have been suffering at the devastation of these fires. We're doing this special event in partnership with our friends Indigenous Environmental Network, and we're so excited to be here tonight, to be with everybody, and to just ultimately to provide a little bit of light on what's going on in our communities right now that we're not seeing, in the national news or anything of that nature. Our communities have really been suffering from these fires, and we're excited to be able to provide a little bit of support, momentum perhaps around fundraising or anything of that nature for everyone. So I'm pleased to have with us this evening Christopher Peters, Joyce Jones, Paul Wilson, and Faith Zackerly. And what we're going to do for everybody is we're going to let each of our guests here provide an update on first where they're at, what kind of work is happening there, and how we can all get together to support that. All of the things that we're talking about right now have to do with our new world of climate change, and not necessarily new, but these climate change driven disasters, and really are the rights of Mother Earth. Our obligation to take care of our lands, and in a lot of ways, a lot of the lack of being able to do so, which really brings us here today. So without further ado, I would just first like to welcome Faith Zackerly. Faith is up on the Colville Reservation. She's right on the ground, and she's providing a lot of direct support to the families out there. So Faith?
Yes. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me tonight. Yes, I reside on the Colville Indian Reservation. I'm actually centered. I live in Keller, so the fires were directly on one side of the reservation and then on the other. So it wasn't us this time that was hit, but it was a lot of family members and a lot of friends. And there was no ground support the first day or the second day or the third day. So my canoe families kind of just, I reached out to my canoe families and just asked them what we can do, if we can get on the ground and start offering support. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Washington State or the Colville Reservation. It's pretty mountain terrain. And then one part of the reservation's like sagebrush. So
yeah,
the Inchalim fire it's still going at 60% right now. There's 4 homes that were lost. And then through the Okanagan area, there was 17 on our reservation. So the power was out on a lot of the reservations. So people lost their food. They lost they're on limited income. So everything that was in their freezers, refrigerators, the elders who had their traditional medicines and foods, they lost it. So I organized with our nonprofits, and we were able to get out there and start providing on the ground, like propane, heating tanks, water barrels, flashlights, anything that anybody could use at that point. And then when we started getting support, we were able to provide gas cards to people that to be able to get back and forth to town. We had the community center for a little bit. They let us use it for a donation area, and then we moved it to Okanagan, Washington. So it's a bigger outreach. We are able to help other people other than just tribal members. That was a big thing because a lot of the ties were just for Native Americans when it's at a certain donation center. So we wanted to make sure that we're able to help everybody. We're kind of 24 hours right now. We have our canoe families pretty much occupying our little donation site.
Mm.
We have families that come in all the time, you know, whether it be for towels or food or a hug. I mean, just somebody to talk to. We went to Inchlim today and did a home site for a tiny home. So we're getting a lot of really good people out there, even globally now, that are really starting to see the devastation and stuff that's happening up here.
Yeah, and I know that, and correct me if it's a different number, but your peoples, they have a fire crew up there as well, all native fire crew.
Yes, we have two. We have Colville 1 and Colville 2. I have a son on one of them and a son that we kind of raised on the second one. So yeah, it's pretty neat to see all the young people out there, the young native kids out there really doing the groundwork.
That's amazing. Would you mind, what is the nonprofit? I know you mentioned
We're called the River Warriors Society. So we consist of canoe families from all over Washington State and Idaho. We protect the waterways. That's what our normal mission is environmental stuff, pollution. So it kind of tied in with what we're doing now, but just in a different way. I mean, we help where it's needed. I mean, our families are really close being on the water. So we couldn't see doing what we're doing right now without them. And then the MMIW of Washington out of Seattle is also organized with us, and Wenatchee Wear. So between our three organizations, I mean, we keep track of everybody, the families. We have meetings every other night and go make lists of the family needs. We were able to provide furniture for 3 families, a trailer, a motorhome, a car was donated to us. So we were able to get a lot of resources out to people directly.
what is thank you, Faith. What is I kind of gotten to get a little peek at the kind of the range of things, not only by being able to see what the River Warrior Society is doing, but I've also seen like a lot of requests to provide support to their animals, like horses and livestock and things of that nature. What has been like the impact on that?
Yes, a lot of ranchers lost a lot of all their fencing. We're providing groundwork for fencing right now. We have a bunch of River Warriors out building fences. Our fairgrounds is now like the stable for people to bring in like hay or dog food or cat food. Right now, we just primarily are trying to get the elders' fences up because they're losing a lot of their cattle. And then they live so close to the highway that they're getting hit. So they were already taken out by the fire, and the little bit that are left are getting ran over. So we've had people going out at 6 o'clock in the morning and then going throughout the night on trying to get these people's fences up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. We'll circle back to that. I think it's just important to really try to contextualize to all of our relatives out there that it's not just like the structures, it goes into the things like the fences and everything of that nature. Really, it's like when these fires come through, they don't stop for anything, right? And that's kind of like speaks to the couple of things of including our relationship to fire. So thank you for that. I'll now like to have Paul Wilson. Paul Robert Wolf Wilson is a citizen of the Klamath Nations. He's a digital storyteller, cultural practitioner. He uses his work around visual sovereignty to strengthen and advocate for tribal governance of land and water internationally. Paul's based in his home village of Chiloquin, Oregon. He'll be speaking on the 242 fire that burnt inside his ancestral territories. So thanks, Paul. I know we're having there may be some breaking up. If that happens, forgive us, relatives. One of the cell towers was burnt down or affected where Paul's living. So yeah, thank you, Paul.
Lisa, everybody. My name is Paul Wilson, and thank you for this time and this space. First and foremost, the 242 fire burnt 14,000 acres right outside of my home village here in Chiloquin, Oregon. And it's temporarily displaced many families throughout my community. Amongst those that were affected, we had distinguished tribal elders lose their homes. And so though this fire narrowly missed our town of Chiloquin, it kind of surrounded our town, taking over multiple highways. And so in its early stages, as we had those red flag wind warnings, it was very scary for a lot of our people here, tribal and non-tribal, in terms of evacuation. And in the same capacity, we also had a lot of those folks that had their animals that was an issue as well. We had our fairgrounds open about 30 miles south of us. Our fire has been contained, and so we are kind of in that devolved state of still cleaning up and containing any of those hot spots. But all evacuation notices have been reversed, and people have been able to return to their homes, the ones that survived their homes, survived the fire. We have yet to really be able to assess the extent of the damage here, but within the path of the most impact were at least 2 critical freshwater springs, as well as migratory corridors for our elk and our deer. And so, we don't know what this will look like throughout the winter. We have a really tough winters. And so as this comes up, we don't know what that will look like for our those first food staples for us, the elk, the deer that rely on that migratory corridor, as well as the firewood that we go into those the areas where we experience that fire. We don't know what it'll look like this winter, especially for those elders, if we can't provide that support. Our tribe was really, the Klamath tribes was able to really pivot. My family was privileged to assist in that. The government has been on the front lines assisting those impacted. Our hotel, our tribal hotel, was open to those evacuated and served as a base for the Red Cross, where folks that were evacuated were to check in and receive resources. We were also able to coordinate and deliver food boxes, both fresh produce as well as hot meals, to those impacted, as well as those serving in capacity of firefighting. And so it's been really inspiring to see my community and my tribal government step up and pivot and provide provide guidance and support during these times for our community. It's really inspiring to see that. In addition to those immediate relief supplies, we've also established a mutual aid fund to assist those tribal elders and community members in recovering from the fire itself.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, just being able to see some of the requests coming in, I think it's just, and this is, I think, across the board with our communities, seeing people apply on somebody else's behalf too that had a home burned down or things of that nature. So it's good to see how, at least in these instances, we're also able to come together and how we immediately act to support our elders or things in that nature. So we're glad that we're able to have this conversation, to be able to talk about these things, and yeah, thanks for the update. So next we have Joyce Jones, and Joyce Jones is on the senior management team of the Northern Indian Development Council, NCIDC, for those unfamiliar or familiar. As the Central and Eastern Regional Manager of the Siskiyou, Shasta, Trinity and Butte counties, and has been with the agency for the last 45 years. She is the lead team member for the NCIDC National Dislocated Workers Grants, assessing damages, developing participant programs, and providing fire, storm, and COVID-19 disaster assistance, cleanup, repair services, and several Northern California counties. Joyce also manages the Community Service Block Grant Program for her region, providing emergency assistance and basic subsistence to economically disadvantaged Native Americans. Through this program, NCIDC actively assists disaster victims with their basic needs, as well as referrals to all services available for these victims during the crisis. Joyce was really instrumental in raising $60,000 in funding from multiple private foundations to supplement this grant and assist with the victims of these fires. So, and specifically with the major crisis with the Slater fire, our Karuk relatives and our relatives up in the Happy Camp region. So, you know, thank you for doing what you're doing, Joyce, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Yes, the Slater fire is still only 24% contained.
Yeah.
It's 152,000, and the high winds took it in a bad direction last night again. One of the problems with these fires within California, the people's homes that have not been burned out, they're not going to allow them back in there until the power comes and hazard trees. First, they said it would be 2 to 4 weeks, and now they're telling them 6 to 12 months.
Wow.
And their homes are not burned. So now they're displaced for this amount of time. And there's 488 families being put up in motels right now. And we helped advocate and get different groups that are feeding these people daily.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Cross and the Siskiyou County OES are currently paying for their rooms, but there's a lot more needs that they have that are not being met. The families that were burned out, I mean, most of them got out barely with anything, what they had on and their family members. They have lost individuals there to the fire that were not able to get out. There's multiple needs still that are not being addressed. The community has really reveled around and raised a lot of donations to assist in the needs. But when they're living in motels, they cannot cook.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leaves them out of that particular loop. And then they're out here in Wairika and Weed, and for their services, they're required to go back to Happy Camp now. So that's a 145-mile round trip for them. And this area is a very economically repressed. There's not a lot of jobs for them down there. Major employers are the tribe and the Forest Service. That's it.
Yep.
And so they're going to have a lot of ongoing needs. And I look at it as individual needs for every household, and each one is unique. And there's a lot of needs to be met through Seventh Generation funding and other agencies. We've been giving them cash cards to buy some toiletries, buy some change of clothes. But right now, the availability to help them has been, a little bit, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we look to try to generate some more for these people. If they're going to be stuck out here for 6 months, that's a long time.
Yeah. And especially in what you've said. Oh, I thought, were you going to say something, Joyce? Sorry.
No, I was letting you speak.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Didn't want to interrupt. I was just, speaking to that, how isolated it is there.
Very rural, remote.
And, I read a couple of the applications that have come through, and one of them even said something like, you know, their car broke down on the road trying to escape from the fire, and they don't even know if that's there, things like that. We've heard a lot of people are, you said, I think you said 170 miles round trip.
145 miles round trip.
145 miles round trip. So for a lot of our relatives, that's like not even a possibility. And I heard a lot of them were just camping out in tents and things
Yes.
of that nature.
And in cars, I encountered a family in their vehicle at Walmart with a 6-month-old, an 18-month-old, and a 3-year-old. And it just broke my heart. I paid for a room for the night, gave them the links. This is where you go to get signed up, and kind of handheld them the next morning to get them into safe living conditions, because with the babies and diapers, and it's just not. And they were unaware of what was available to them. And there's a great many needs.
Yeah, and even you know, you bring up the hotel, really reality for a lot of people. If they are able to get any shelter, it's either through family or friends or this hotel situation, and the cost itself has been a barrier for of what I see in some of the relatives going to the hotels, and the hotels jacking up the prices of the rooms.
Very much so. In fact, one of the lower echelon motels took the rooms from $55 a night to $119 a night.
And exactly, you know,
Allowed. I watched the same thing happen with the campfire. The city of Pico took their rooms from $75 a night to $300 a night because someone else was paying for it.
Exactly.
That's very sad.
Mm-hmm. A lot of issues that especially our indigenous relatives always suffer the maximum brunt of when it comes to these disasters, the disaster capitalism that happens, all of those things that happen with this.
Right.
Well,
yeah, it's ongoing. And what I'm seeing from the Resource Network is they're not understanding Native families. If you go stay with a family member and they have the room to take you in, you're still going to need resources and support. And they figure, well, if you're at your families, we're not going to help you with anything. Then you become a burden to your family.
And I have one more question before we go to Chris, and it just come to me, you know, thinking about the proximity of our relatives. We're still in a pandemic, right? And so the COVID-19 pandemic is still a factor in all of these things. And so just given what some of the work that you've been able to be in, can you speak to some of that?
Yes, and the reason why they're not doing shelters is COVID-19. And this is the reason they're going to motel rooms and separation, and they're delivering meals to everyone at their rooms. And first they had drive up and you picked it up, but the facility they were at was not large enough to do this. So now they deliver to each of the hotels, but they're spread out. We have not enough hotels for that amount of people. So we have people all the way in Weed and Mount Shasta.
Wow. Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
Tough things to digest there. Next, I would like to welcome Christopher Peters. Christopher Peters is the president of the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples, an Indigenous nonprofit supporting grassroots Native communities with revitalization, restoration, preservation, planning, and development. Chris has been in this work for more than 30 years, just being able to be right here at the grassroots level, working with our relatives, providing support, working on things like climate change, protection of sacred sites, which is involved in this very same issues that we're talking about with these fires, and really the renaissance of sacred knowledge and earth renewal ceremonies for right here in the Northern California tribal peoples area. So really excited to have Chris here. Chris is also the owner and principal consultant for Red Deer Consulting, an independent firm that provides identity-based cultural advising, mentoring, and capacity building services for tribal communities. Chris serves as the Indigenous Peoples Task Force Chair as a board member for the Parliaments of the World's Religion. So we're really excited to have Chris on here with us. I get to work with Chris every day, of course, and so I'm excited for everybody to hear what Chris has to say, especially in regard to some of the on the ground efforts that have been coming forward in the launch of the wildfire, the Flicker Wildfire Response Fund. Thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you, Stephen. You know, I think 2020 has been relentless. You know, the pandemic hit us hard, race riots all over the world, and the climate weather events, atrocious. I mean, we have to be real that the fires in California, in the western states, in Oregon and Washington, Montana, all through our climate-related fires, they wouldn't burn as extensively if they have without the climate that we're dealing with now. And folks needed to own up to that and to understand that we as human beings, we need to change our behavior, change our lifestyles to begin to combat, you know, the disasters that we're looking at. You know, what do we leave our grandkids is something that we need to be of major concern with. You know, and right now, with the rate we're going, the fires are devastating us. And it's a matter of time before the fires hit every state in the United States and throughout the world. You know, I had an opportunity to talk with Uncle, a elder from Greenland today, and he is on this webinar with us. And he talked about fires and the devastation of climate change in Greenland. The ice is melting. You know, the ice is melting at a proportion that we cannot believe or understand. And it is impacting not only us, but all of life on the planet, all of life. You know, we've seen more extinctions of species in our lifetime since the Ice Age. You know, a third of all species have died off. There's no more of them. And it's because of human greed. Humans have taken much more and used more resources than the earth can tolerate. It's anticipated that it would take 2 or 3 worlds the size of Earth for us to sustain this lifestyle. We don't have that. We don't have that. You know, we have one Earth, and that's home. We have to take care of it. And you know, we are in a position now of how do we combat this? How do we stop the fires? Most of them are not contained, you know, and Native communities by and large have been ignored here recently. And I think philanthropy needs to step forward. Philanthropy and also government agencies need to step forward a little more aggressively and say, hey, the first Americans are impacted disproportionately in the West. You know, there's some like 2 million acres of fires burning in California, huge, vast areas of land that are impacted. You know, early on, we established the Flicker Fund. And the Flicker Fund was initially established around the huge fires and the devastation, the climate fires in Australia. And we're concerned that all species, all our relatives were being impacted. Non-human relatives were being impacted at disproportionately high rates, and nobody was addressing it. So we had to do something. The Flicker Fund was an initiative that we started, and then came the pandemic. The pandemic began to devastate Native communities at, again, disproportionately high rates, and spread as aggressively as the wildfires are spreading now throughout our country, throughout our communities, and people are dying. dying at rates that we have never experienced before. So the Flicker Fund is established for the pandemic, but here comes the big fires now. And the need to get money out, we've taken all of the resources that we've had to get it out to communities, to try to get some small amounts of money out. We're not a wealthy foundation. And I think other foundations people need to help in this regard, to make donations directly to the River Warriors, to the Cuddick tribe and the Cuddick people and the NCIDC, to Paul and his efforts in Oregon. You know, we have to do something, that we are reaching the end of what we have available, and we need to generate more resources. Everybody needs to generate more resources to be able to effectively combat this situation. Like Joyce had shared, hotel expenses, people are jacking up the prices. The extended stays now are 4, 5, 6 months long. We can't hold out. We need more injection of dollars. We need more injection of people's help in this fund, but through any source that we can get out. Now we are dealing with just fires that we are impacted by here on the program, but all through California, all through Washington and Oregon, it has impacted Native people disproportionately high. Our lands are burning at a rate higher or equal to non-natives. All of it's our land, first of all, but the ownership of land now, we have about 50% of all land base that are under Indian control that are burning. And that's disproportionate. That is outrageously high. So thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I want to contextualize at least for even just all of you on the show, on the program tonight, like where you're representing. And I know Joyce is able to get some insight into like our relatives down south as well, on like on the Creek Fire and Berry Creek down there. All of our relatives down there, which are equally suffering a lot of loss. Of the total acres, just for everybody today, there's 6 million acres that have burned in 2020, which is 7 million acres that have burned in 2020, which is just it's 1 million above the 10-year average. With that average number of fires over the 10 years comprising that 6 million acres, 46,000. We're at 1 million above that with 3,000 less fires. So that's nationally. Now we take all of you who is on this program tonight, representing, we'll say, Northern California and the Northwest. There's half of all those acres, 3,300,000 acres, is burning in just the Northwest, in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, in 6,000 fires. So it's just such an immense amount of devastation that's happening. To try to contextualize that for all the folks that may be unfamiliar where we're at, it's just such a large number, and I think it really just brings into account a few different things when it comes to climate change, but also the century of mismanagement that has happened on these lands. As soon as our ancestors started getting impacted by these things, people, being removed from their lands, the stewards of the lands, that's when things started to really go south on that. When we remove the stewards from the land is becoming overgrown, and that's why we're having these extreme fire behaviors, right? This conservationism, preservation sort of mentality of like the wildlands, and even the term wildfire, all of that. We got to look at all of those components and how they play a part in, on top of that, the climate change driven disasters that we're seeing. you think of like what comes to mind is the John Muir, coming and saying like these pristine untouched lands, and as soon as the peoples were removed, and that's when the lands became overgrown. Even my ancestors, my Lakota ancestors would burn off the land for many reasons, for food, for subsistence and everything. It's all about our relationship to these things, a relationship to fire, and not categorizing them as per se wild, things of that nature. I'm wondering if we have any questions coming in from any of the viewers, but I just did want to offer Joyce to provide a little bit of insight, if you can, Joyce, on those relatives in the South that are.
I have it right here. Yes, that North Complex started out as the Bear Fire. It has now grown into several fires. It's at 304,000 acres right now. It has burned 2,139 homes. It's taken out entire communities on the Feather Falls Mountain. It's taken out Berry Creek, Feather Falls, Brush Creek, Springtown, Forbes-town, part of it is burned. They're totally evacuated. It's burning into Strawberry Valley. They have thousands of people evacuated with nowhere to go. We set up my coworker in her off hours, because she's my fire person. She's doing after hours, donations, recruitment of funds, and she has a center for people to come to besides just going to the Red Cross. And she's been basically doing elderly, and she's been finding them places to stay, because they seem to be falling through the cracks and sleeping in their cars. And so she's actively recruiting where they have somewhere to go, but their need is great. They have nowhere near the amount of donations coming in, because 2 years ago they were completely devastated for the Camp Mega Fire.
Yeah,
that took out the entire community of Paradise and Magalia.
Yeah.
And when I did the first tours through there, because I do the National Dislocated Worker grants that do the restoration from these fires, we toured, and I found out that if I want to live in these countries, I want a adobe home. They do not burn. They're the only homes that were left standing. And, I love being in the mountains, but it made me rethink about how I need to live and how I need to simplify.
That's what you said is kind of something that I've been talking with a few people about as well. And it's like, it kind of goes into, the home itself, but also when we talk about defensible space in the wildfire, in the fire arena, or those that are familiar with fire, you're familiar with defensible space and what does that mean?
Yes.
And a lot of these places, especially around where we're at in this northern territory, there's a lot of those invasive species that make it almost impossible to happen, like those blackberries that grow up until just your doorsteps, basically, if you let them, and burn super hot. There was some talk of I think it's an English ivy, something like that it covers the ground, the forest floor there, and is almost like a natural defensible barrier that doesn't burn in the same way of those kind of things.
Yes.
So just I guess all that to say is like becoming more familiar with like our home as a living unit.
Yes. Sorry, they know I'm still here, so people come.
Well, I do see that we have one question, or maybe more of a comment, but I just want to read it. It says, Hi, I'm Russ with the clearwatervision.org. We are a nonprofit in Northern California. We work on safe water and are especially concerned with the 2,000 abandoned mercury mines at the time of the fires. We have been bringing notice at what is called America's oldest lake and the Elam tribe that has been around since the Ice Age, 1,400 years and before the Pomo. This tribe live on top of a Superfund mercury mine since the gold rush. Our goal is to restore their wisdom, especially on the Bay Area with the poison water going directly to the lake into the bay. So basically, this person is just talking about these abandoned mines and all of those kind of things. So I'm wondering if any of you guys can speak to those sort of things in your area.
Well, I think that's a very real concern, especially with the Elam tribe in Lake County that he talks about. You know, they have been sitting on a Superfund site for years, and attempts at cleaning up has failed. It needs to be addressed. A fire could really have some major problems with that. And right now, Pomo country is burning. So we need to figure out how to deal with these situations of mining. And I'm sure every place, you know, gold mining in Northern California is rampant. You know, and we just need to address those issues.
Thank you, Chris. At this point, I don't know if we're getting any more questions, but I just did want to circle back to Chris talking about the pandemic and the origin really of the Flickr Fund. As I recall, it was in line with that pandemic response, but as well a call from our Australian relatives, also at the time really being impacted by wildfires, or the so-called wildfires. It's just that, so, you know, it doesn't matter if we're over here in this northern area, southern area, any direction, and even over in our relatives over there in Australia, they're suffering the same amount of devastation. You know, the animals, the trees, all of these things that are suffering such immense loss. However, over there in Australia, we can see what is positive when our indigenous relatives are allowed to really take hold over those land management practices. We've seen, like, in the northern region, that the fires are significantly less, or the impact is significantly less, because of the collaborative support that happens between those tribal peoples, and even with support of the government. So it kind of gives us, I guess, a place to go to when right now we're in the immediate, like, trauma, the heartbreak, the grief that a lot of people are suffering from. Loss of home, loss of ceremonial regalia, ceremonial grounds. Where do we go from here? There's a lot to take in with that. And so maybe on that note of where we're at and where we've been, and where we're going to go next, I would just like to offer you each an opportunity for any closing words, closing thoughts, and things of that nature. And maybe we'll just go same order. We'll go with Faith.
Our closing, we're just focusing now on recovery. Like I said, everybody's out of their homes. We're doing the same thing with still booking rooms for families, food. We're offering assistance for getting campers, motorhomes, anything that people are willing to donate. The Methow Valley has been really a valuable asset to us also. They suffered the Carlton Complex fire a few years ago, which was a really big fire. So all of our relatives from that side of the river have been really, hands-on with us, from deliveries to doing the groundwork. We have a lot of really good support systems with the canoe families and just anybody who's willing to volunteer. We just want to look at the long term now, you know, finding them homes if they didn't have insurance, you know, they can't rebuild, or getting the proper permits to be able to put a new home on. So we've got a lot of things to work on, and until we have those 22 people in homes or in a safe place, we'll continue doing what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Faith. I really appreciate you just being able to offer that assistance, and just want to like express our gratitude and love to all of those people that you're working with. And just if there is any like direct links for people to donate to or things like that, please say it now, or we can also try to get that information out for you.
We have a group. Our nonprofit is the River Warriors Society. It's on Facebook. We also work with the MMIW out of Washington State, Earth Feather Sovereigns Group, and Wenatchee Wear. So those three groups have been our counterpartners. Everything that we do is between us three groups to be able to take care of the families affected on and off the reservation. We help non-tribals as well. So if there's anybody affected, you know, even on our border towns, so we're willing to help you. We're located at the old senior meal site on Highway 97 in Okanagan, Washington.
Great. Thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you.
Looks like I was gonna circle to Paul, but he might have dropped off temporarily. Let's Paul, are you still with us? If not, we'll just offer Joyce this opportunity to, again, just how can people help Joyce, and what's next?
What's next is we know we have 200 families that are now homeless, completely homeless. They have to rebuild. Some of them are over 100-year-old homesteads. Building codes are way different now than what they were then. And some of them, that's a hard pill to swallow, but there's still donations needed. A $200 card for a family of 5 doesn't buy very many clothes.
No.
And the needs are still great. And any donations for them is greatly appreciated. I've been working hand in hand with the tribe. Every call we get, that stuff that needs to go direct to the tribe, we refer them right down to Trista Perry. They've been very proactive. I actually referred a group to the Klamath tribe also today that's delivering organic foods from Washington State for fire disaster victims.
Thank you.
We do not have the facility for that here, but they do.
Is there and if there are local, I guess, spots around the regions that you guys serve, is there any places that they can contribute to directly, or is it just hit you guys up at NCIDC and kind of determine? Okay.
Yes, because I'm trying to recruit right now for Butte County.
Okay.
For that area also, and that's a lot of families that have lost homes there. You know, almost 2,200.
Wow.
Also, and of that, 80% were Native, is what's the projections, because those are their traditional grounds.
Yeah. Wow, that just brings up so much.
Total devastation. If they had allowed the tribes to sewer their own lands and do their techs and do the underfuels and get rid of them, they are better stewards of the land than the non-natives.
That's you couldn't have said it better, Joyce. You know, we definitely know how to take care of our homes, right?
Yeah, and I find that Six Rivers is probably the only national forest that is proactive in that division.
You're right, and that's one thing that I've noticed is they're really proactive, especially the relatives over in Hoopa doing back burns and things like that, burning in the right time of the year, and even still though, because of their it's so bottlenecked and restricted and not collaborative, we still suffer some of those heavy impacts.
Right. The other suffering I'm seeing right now is this is traditional times for Native people to collect their traditional foods, their acorns, their medicines, their materials. These forests are all shut down. They're no longer allowed to collect. And I know of people that's been out just recently and they were told, if you're back in the forest, you get a $4,000 fine. Collecting their own traditional food. Pretty shocking.
Yeah, and just even like the intensity of some of those fires, really shocking the ground for some of those things not to come back for decades.
Yes, you know, the basketry, the acorns, all of it.
It's really thank
Burns.
you.
It's shocking. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I think you know, humans have a choice. You know, we can wait for the devastation to happen and be forced to make change, and we're reaching that point slowly. Or we can all make a conscious and intellectual decision, set back that we need to change. And how do we go about that? Listen to elders, listen to people talking. All of our communities are rich with that knowledge, that traditional knowledge, and figuring out what we need to do. What is the next step? You know, we may not have the answers, not all of the answers, but we could set people in the right direction. You know, we need to get off the fossil fuels
Yes.
completely. We have to do that. Everybody knows that. You know, we can't do it through carbon trading or REDs or whatever else that they're suggesting we do. It doesn't work. We can't buy our way out of the situation. You know, the current situation right now with the weather events happening all around the world, tornadoes, winds, oceans, floods, everything that is so apparent that people must see that we are causing it. You know, I've seen on Facebook that a frog doesn't drink up the water he lives in. You know, we can't burn up and destroy the home that we live in. We can't do that. You know, certainly contact the Flickr Fund. Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. We're on the web. We're on Facebook where information is out. And we route money to Native communities. We spent a significant amount of money and we hope to raise and spend some more. But we need support. We need donations.
That's right, Chris. Always full of good words there.
Yes.
And just to sort of really solidify that is that, yeah, any support that you can provide to the wildfire response, the Flickr Fund wildfire response is going to go directly to people like we're speaking with today. These people that are either like Faith working with the community members to provide the support, or going directly to those families that Joyce is talking about that are just trying to get shelter or any of those things right now. That's where people are. And you know, we've received over 600 applications from people all up and down the West. And you know, anything that we can do to help honor those requests, we're certainly grateful for, and to be able to you know, just provide that support that people need right now, that communities need right now. You know, not being able to collect their traditional foods, all of that. On top of that, you know, losing a home, I really feel like it's like, you know, losing a relative, and I can't imagine what the grief feels like of losing an entire community. So it's just really anything that anybody can do to help is going to be really received well among many people. So it looks like Paul dropped off, but you know, I just will say for Paul, he's in Chiloquin, and you know, if there's any support that you can help provide if you're in that area, I know there, contact us here or try to get a hold of their tribal nation and to provide any support. Really thankful for Paul being on with us and to be able to share you know, what's happening there. And I'm sure the reason that he dropped off is because one of the cell towers burnt down. So it's just
Yeah.
like it goes so deep. Again, I want to just you know, express my gratitude to you all being able to share and convey what's happening. I think there's not a lot of talking about our communities being impacted by this, and I do appreciate how as well as like Faith talking about the border towns, that dynamic, and just really trying to support the community. You know, the fire doesn't distinguish between these barriers and borders, but you know, it's these rural communities that are suffering the brunt of all this devastation. So thank you guys for your work, for your words, and we really hope that, you know, people are able to get some more help and support. And we thank you for carrying this this support. You know, I can't imagine how heavy it must be, and so I just wanted to honor that and say thank you. And again, if people are able to, please donate to the 7th Generation Fund Wildfire Response.
Yes.
And we really appreciate it. And we just want to say thank you to our partners in this, the Indigenous Environmental Network. Was an honor for us to be on tonight, and we look forward to more. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.